In a world where mental health matters, through Food for Thought, we aim to create awareness and empower individuals to take charge of their mental well-being. Join us as we delve into the complexities of mental health and navigate the path towards healing and resilience. Food for Thought with Professor David Ndete.
Welcome to another episode of Food for Thought with Professor Ndete. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about stress and stress management. We've talked about stress and what it is. We've looked at some of the symptoms of stress, some of the triggers of stress. Today, we want to look at effects. How does stress affect our lives? If we don't do anything about it, how does it affect our lives? I introduced you to a gentleman in the second episode of this series. This is Eden Davis. Let's go back to him because he hadn't finished his story. How did stress affect his life? Listen to this.
I lost a few friends because then one of the things I did is I felt like if I could visit this person and I started being judgmental on myself, then one of the options that I felt would work for me is to just stay away so that it will give me peace of mind, right? Because I felt this will give me, because now from the past is that things have not worked, and maybe if you try to compare with your people or maybe with your friends, you realize that at least they have made some progressive steps. Because you see, like for me, isolation was the best option. Sometimes there is this aspect about men that you don't talk. Unfortunately, I was a victim because even I have my brother and a sister, sisters in town, but at least I also kept it to myself because you need to be that strong person, you know. You need to maintain a positive stature, you know. So not that it affected them directly, but me as an individual, it did affect me. Yeah, because I think I was a bit isolative. And even progressively, I think it has, growing up, I was a bit outgoing. I was that active person who is always out there, you know. But even for that period and even extensively beyond, I'm kind of an introvert now. Yeah. So it's at that time that I think I developed this approach of just being alone, just doing your things. Yeah, and focusing more on just yourself as a way of trying to manage, because not unless maybe I'm trying out something and you're out there with people, try to maintain that positive stature and positive look in life, but then for me, it was more of just isolation. It's a fact, actually. It's not easy to transition from one career line to a different, especially if there is no any link between the two. Yeah, so you realize that maybe the effect of the other ones could be cropping into. So I think I stayed around them, but again, from just a learning point from a learning point. Not that I was really explaining my life out to them. This is what I'm going through, this is what I feel, or things like that. So it kept me a bit busy trying to learn. Yeah, I could learn so many things, study especially, because the technology world is an evolving world, you know, so you need to keep up trying to do a few things, trying to learn a few things. So I can think in that aspect, it kept my mind busy. Much of I had something eating me up. I had these expectations in life. I know things would go this way and they were not going this way, but at least it kept me busy. But then still alone. I had few people around. I had, of course, relatives around, but I still maintained that space. I was just alone.
That was David's testimony of how stress affected his life. We are back with Professor Ndete. Professor, how are you doing?
Good.
It's good to be here again. Interesting information you've been giving us over the last couple of weeks as we talk about stress and stress management. I mean, I've learned things I had no idea about. Today, let's talk about the effects. When somebody has gotten to that downtrend on that graph and they're not doing anything about it, nothing is happening, they're still continuing on. What are some of the effects that this stress will have on their lives?
Well, we have already alluded to some of them. We said people may have certain symptoms. The one we talked about to do with the brain, memory, in cause lack of status response, irritability. We talked about how it's things to do with the ears. We talked about how the adrenaline can affect other parts of the body. And so you can understand many of those complications if you look at it in that sequence. Now, if you have been stressed for a long time, and you are producing a lot of adrenaline, many things, physical. We are talking about physical health.
Okay.
We are talking about physical health. It could be you develop high blood pressure. It could be that you develop diabetes.
Okay.
It could be that you develop heart disease. Could be problems you develop kidney problems. So the physical consequences of prolonged stress, especially when it starts going down this way, and when it plateaus, it depends on how long it goes. Because this condition, the one I mentioned, take a long time to develop them. If it goes for a long time unmanaged or unrecognized, it may lead to those different physical conditions. And we also know that when people have stress, they have also different ways of coping. One of them is overeating.
Yes.
Yeah, they have very good appetite for eating. They want to eat as a way of coping. Many people resort to taking drugs. And they are taking drugs as a way of coping with their own mechanisms.
Okay.
Yeah. I have had very interesting stories from different people. And let me just tell I think they are okay. There is nothing obscene about this. A very senior psychiatrist in Nigeria, a very senior psychiatrist we were discussing this. And he was telling me, she was telling me, there was this person in a bar, very late.
Yes.
And he kept on taking a photograph, looking at it, and then he looked at this, and then he said, the waiter, bring more drink. Yeah. And he went on asking for this until then he looked at the picture and said, I can go home. So this person was curious. Why are you doing this?
Yes.
See, I'm looking at the picture. This is my wife. And if I look at the picture, and she does not look beautiful.
Yeah. I'm not going home.
I'm not going home.
Until she looks beautiful.
Until she taken enough, he has taken enough, and it's transformed the wife. The wife looks beautiful. What are we talking about? We are talking about a family situation. Yes. Leading to maybe excessive drinking. Because it is when this person got drunk, that's when the wife got beautiful, and therefore he could go home hoping there will be peace. Okay. It can also be that this person has realized that taking a little sip of wine, whatever it is, it induces sleep and is able to sleep. Okay. Yeah? If that is happening, they are using this drug as a way of coping with the stress. So they end up having a drug problem. They may go to the pharmacy and buy these medicine which should be prescribed by doctors. We call benzodiazepine or sleeping tablets.
Yes.
And they start using initially to make them feel a little bit better. But then eventually they become hooked to it. They become addicted.
For the people who work in what I would term as high stress environments, you have the doctors, or maybe you have people like policemen, security forces. You know, how does this affect their work?
They may end up taking drugs as a way of coping.
Of coping.
It's a way of coping. But the fact that they are taking drugs as a way of coping, it means they have already reached a plateau and they are
going down.
They are going down.
Oh.
So, and obviously, we said when they reach the plateau or when they are going down, it affects the output.
It does. It does.
They are not performing the way they should be performing.
Very, very
yeah,
true.
so for sure. It is a fact that children in the uterus, starting very early in life, in fact, the earlier the ones, the first trimester, the first 3 months, terrible. Maybe the second 3 months, bad. Final 3 months, bad. But it has been demonstrated that exposing the fetus to stress has very deleterious effects on the life of that child as an individual. And I'll tell, and when I'm talking about exposing the child to stress in the uterus, is another way of saying exposing the mother to stress when they are pregnant.
Okay.
Yes, can affect the baby. Because remember we said, when the people are stressed, they produce certain chemical changes in the brain, which can express themselves in different ways. There is also the possibility those chemical changes affect substance called cortisol in the brain, is another one, which is related to immunology. And if there is abnormal immunological response, those chemical constants, they say, in this case, let's talk about the cortisol passing from the mother to the baby. Is going to have the same effects. So children in the uterus can be stressed. So the most important thing is mental health. And I have no words to say this. The mental health of a pregnant mother is so vital, not only for herself, but for the baby. Okay? So we are beginning to realize that it's not just in handout, the way symptoms of sleep and things like that. It is a long process that starts very, 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 very early in life.
Okay.
And if I may conclude, giving you a very local example, in 1952, there was a study that was done in Boston. And these two people followed two groups of people who had been bereaved. Lost a spouse. These people, they were picked from the most affluent families living in Boston, Massachusetts. They had money, they had everything. So they followed them and they divided them into two groups. Those who had been bereaved, stressful, and those who had not been bereaved. And they followed them. And they found that those who had been bereaved, they died earlier than those who had not been bereaved. And what did they die of? Cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, stroke.
Wow.
In other words, that stress had long-lasting effects. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is not something that to be taken lightly.
No.
Wow.
No.
Okay. Professor, we have to end it there. Next week, I want us to talk about prevention. What do I need to do if I realize I'm on that plateau so that I don't get into the deep? Because I think that's very important. Are there some coping mechanisms and some things that we can do to help release the stress? My time is up for Food for Thought with Professor Ndetei for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Reminder, if you haven't watched the previous episodes, you can find them on the Family Media YouTube page, or check out our app. Go onto the Google Play Store and the Apple Store and download the Family Media app. Until the next week for the next episode, do have a great day.
Food for Thought with Professor David Ndetei.